No species could fight in the void until humanity tried. That was what the old records would say one day. But right now, in the Hall of Concord, no one believed it. The hall floated above the gas giant Velrai, a place of glass and light, suspended in the high atmosphere. Below, enormous storms, twisted in gold and violet, swallowing lightning bolts longer than continents. The floor underfoot shimmered faintly, as if the whole chamber rested on a thin sheet of light. Ambassador Lyra Vance stood near the far edge of the circular hall, her reflection faintly visible in the glass wall behind her. She was the only human present. Around her, alien delegates filled the chamber, tall, short, scaled, feathered, and shapes beyond human imagination. Some floated in containment spheres, others shifted their colors with emotion. All spoke in the soft hum of translated voices. The Rith delegate, a thin reptilian, with a neck ridged like a knife's edge, leaned toward the being beside him and whispered, "Strange they even sent one of them. This is no place for primitives." His copper-glass eyes flashed with faint amusement. Lyra heard it. She always heard the whispers. Humans were new here, only 30 years in the Interstellar Alliance, in a galaxy that measured time in thousands of years, that made humanity little more than a child. A reckless, unpredictable child. But Lyra didn't let her face show her thoughts. She kept her hands folded neatly behind her back and watched the center of the room. A holographic projection began to appear there, not in bright light, but in the cold shadow of space. It showed the Dracarys Rift. Once it had been a star-rich corridor linking dozens of worlds. Now it was a wound. Whole suns dimmed there. Planets had gone silent. Trade routes were cut off, not by blockades, but by something far worse. High Chancellor Zithel stood before the projection. The Chancellor's body was made of silver plasma, held in shape by a crystalline frame. His voice was deep and slow, carrying weight like a planet's pull. "It is the M-Core swarm," Zethal said. "They have consumed 6 systems in the last cycle. Our fleets enter the rift, and do not return. The void belongs to them now." The murmurs that followed were not just concern, they were fear. The Makor were older than the Alliance itself, a hive-mind species with no language, no diplomacy, and no mercy. They moved like a tide, stripping entire worlds of life and leaving nothing but dust. They were not conquerors, they were consumers. The Thelini representative, a being with skin like shifting glass, spoke first. "We cannot stop them. We must withdraw all forces. The border systems will be abandoned." Others nodded. Some argued for stronger defenses elsewhere, but few spoke of fighting back. It was not just that the M-Core were powerful, it was that the battles took place in the rift, in open space, in the cold and airless dark between worlds. Most species avoided such combat when possible. Their ships were built for planetary defenses or orbital engagements. Lyra's hands clenched behind her back. Earth's colonies were only 3 jumps away from the rift. She thought of Mars City, of her brother's little farm dome on Europa, of the children playing under the glass sky of New Kyoto. If the swarm reached them, she stepped forward. That's not true. The voices in the hall fell silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned to her, slit round, compound, glowing, or swirling, with alien colors. Zithal regarded her. "You have fought them before." "No," Lyra admitted. Her voice was steady, but inside her chest, her heart beat like a drum. "But humans have faced impossible odds before. We learn fast. We adapt faster. And when we fight to win." A ripple of low laughter spread across the chamber. It was not cruel exactly, but it was mocking. The Rith delegate tilted his narrow head. "You win against the M-Core. Your species barely knows how to survive the void. Even our greatest fleets fail there." Lyra met his gaze. "Maybe that's why we'll succeed. We don't think like you. We don't fight like you. And we don't give up just because the odds are bad." The chamber was silent for a long moment. The storm outside the glass walls flickered with distant lightning, casting shadows across Sithal's shining form. Finally, the Chancellor spoke. Very well. One human warship may join the defense fleet. The Alliance will commit no more. We will not throw ships into a lost cause. One ship against the M-Corps swarm. The other delegates murmured again, some in disbelief, some in thinly veiled amusement. To them, this was permission for humanity to prove its arrogance wrong. Lyra took a slow breath. One will be enough. The storm outside the hall raged on, gold and violet spirals twisting endlessly. Somewhere beyond those clouds, beyond the quiet hum of the Hall of Concord, the rift waited cold, silent, and hungry, and for the first time, it was about to meet humans. The human warship Horizon Spear hung in orbit over New Geneva, Earth's largest space station. It was not the biggest vessel in the Alliance fleet, nor the most heavily armed. In fact, compared to the towering alien dreadnoughts, it looked almost plain, long, angular, and built for speed rather than size. But every plate of its dark gray hull had been tested in battles close to suns and asteroid belts, and in the freezing emptiness beyond, Pluto. Captain Adrian Holt stood on the bridge, looking out through the reinforced viewport. His hands rested loosely behind his back. He was in his early 40s, his brown hair streaked with early gray, and his eyes carried the weight of someone who had already lost people in Warcom on their Majarayas. His second-in-command approached. Orders from the Alliance have come. Through, she said, her voice quiet. We rendezvous with their fleet at the edge of the rift in 36 hours. Holt gave a slow nod. What's the mood in the crew? They've all seen the reports, Captain. They know the M-Corps swallow fleet's whole. Some are scared. He turned toward her and smiled faintly. Good. Fear means they understand the stakes. Now we make sure it doesn't control them. The Horizon Spear carried a crew of 80. Unlike most alien ships, where entire tasks were automated or run by specialized castes, human crews were trained to swap roles in emergencies. A gunner could become a repair tech. A pilot could serve as a medic. Every crew member had fought in simulations for dozens of nightmare scenarios. Down in the hangar, Lieutenant Juno Park, the ship's chief engineer, crouched beside a panel, tightening a cable with deliberate care. Her hands were steady, but her mind raced. The rift, the swarm. She'd grown up hearing about them like stories of monsters. But monsters in space didn't stay in fairy tales. Across the hangar, young Ensign Elias Kane was running a diagnostic on the drone bay. He was the youngest. On board only 21, and still carried that mixture of excitement and terror that came with his first real combat assignment. You think we can really take them? He asked. Juno glanced at him. If anyone can, it's us. Because we're human. Because we've made a life out of doing what everyone says is impossible. When the Horizon Spear left dock, the departure was quiet. No fanfare, no speeches. Just the soft hum of the engines rising as the stars began to drift past. In the mess hall that night, the crew gathered. Holt didn't like giving long speeches, but this was different. He stood by the long table, the glow of the observation window behind him. Outside, the Milky Way stretched like a silver river. You all know the stories about the M-Corps, Holt began. You've heard that no one can fight them in the void. That's true for everyone else. But we're not everyone else. We were born in the void. We crossed it in tin cans with engines strapped to the back. We landed on worlds with no air. We built cities under frozen oceans. We survived our own mistakes, our own wars, our own disasters. And now, something out there thinks it can scare us into running. We're going to prove them wrong. The room was silent for a moment. Then someone started tapping their fist against the table. Others joined in. It was not loud, but it carried a steady rhythm. 2 days later, the Horizon Spear emerged from jump space into the dark edge of the Dragaris Rift. The rift was not just empty space. It was darker than the void around it, as if the stars themselves had been swallowed. There was no clear horizon, no sense of direction. The gravitational fields twisted and shifted in unpredictable ways, making long-range sensors unreliable. Waiting. There was the Alliance fleet, towering dreadnoughts of the Thelini, sleek hunter ships of the Rith, vast carrier arcs of the Cathari. When the Horizon's spear joined formation, a channel opened. "This is Commander Savark of the Rith. Flagship," the voice hissed through the translator. "Human vessel. You will remain behind the first line. Your methods are untested. Do not interfere." Holt's reply was calm. "Understood. We'll stay where we can do the most good." The channel cut, but Maya smirked from her console. "They think we're just going to follow their playbook. They're going to learn we don't read from it," Holt said. The first MCO ships appeared without warning. They didn't arrive in neat formations. They came like shadows breaking apart from the rift itself. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Their hulls were organic, black and ridged, like the carapace of deep-sea predators. They moved without visible thrusters, twisting and gliding in impossible ways. The Alliance ships opened fire in coordinated patterns. Beams of energy lanced through the dark. Missiles streaked toward targets. Some Mechor fell, but more kept coming. Inside the horizons, Spearholt didn't give the same firing orders as the rest of the fleet. Instead, he told Maya, "Break from formation. Keep us low." The rift was never still. Even when no Mechor ships could be seen, the dark felt alive, as if it was breathing. The stars beyond the edge were distant and cold, like eyes watching from far away. On the horizon's spear, the crew held their breath. Sensors screamed warnings. The Mechor were coming again. This time, the swarm was larger, far larger. From the bridge, Captain Adrian Holt watched the tactical display. It was filling with red markers, hundreds of them. The first wave had been a test. This was the real attack. "They're coming from multiple vectors," said Commander Maya Reyes, her fingers dancing over the controls. "We can't cover every approach." The Alliance fleet began shifting into a defensive sphere. Massive dreadnoughts moved into position. Carrier arcs deployed clouds of interceptors. Over the coms, the voice of Commander Savark hissed orders in clipped tones. "Hold the line. Do not break formation. Concentrate fire on their leading edge." Holt's jaw tightened. That tactic was too predictable. The M-Corps had no fear. They would happily throw away hundreds of ships to overwhelm a single point. "Sir," Maya said softly, "if they break through, they will," Holt said, "unless we stop them first." The swarm hit like a storm. Black insect-like holes cut through the dark, weaving between Alliance fire. Energy beams stabbed into the void, but the M-Corps moved like water, flowing around the attacks. The first impact came against the Thelini line. A dreadnought's shields flared bright blue, then failed. The ship vanished in a blinding flash. On the bridge of the Horizon Spear, Ensign Elias Kane swallowed hard. "They're cutting through us." Holt's voice was steady. "Then we cut deeper." He tapped the console. "Maya, break from formation. Head directly into their center mass." The crew froze for a heartbeat. It was suicide. The center of the swarm was where the M-Corps were thickest. No ship ever came back. From that dot, Maya met his eyes. "Aye, Captain." The Horizon Spear surged forward, its engines burning bright against the rift's darkness. Around them, alien commanders shouted over open channels. "Human vessel, return to position. You'll be destroyed in seconds." Holt ignored them. His crew moved as one. Juno Park rerouted extra power to the railguns. Kane controlled the drone swarm, sending them ahead like baitfish to confuse enemy sensors. The Mechor reacted instantly, turning toward the lone human ship. To them, it was prey that had wandered too far from the herd. The first enemy ship lunged. The Horizon's spear rolled hard, passing so close to the black hole that the crew could see its jagged ridges scraping against the void. Railguns fired, point blank, ripping into its sensory node. The Makor ship shuddered and spun away, dead in space. Another came from above. Missiles streaked from the human ship's launch bays, arcing upward before curving down into the creature-like vessels. Exposed spine. The explosion tore it in half. As they cut through the swarm, the crew began to see the pattern. The M-Core moved in coordinated streams, like living rivers. Most species tried to dam the river from the outside. Humans, they swam upstream. Captain, we're approaching their command nexus, Maya said. Holt nodded. The Mechor didn't have captains in the way other species did, but the hive mind still relied on relay ships, massive slow-moving vessels that pulsed with strange light. Destroying them could throw the swarm into confusion. Bring us in close, Holt ordered. All weapons on that relay. The Horizon spear dove straight into the M-Core's heart. Enemy fire raked across their shields. The deck shuddered. Sparks burst from a console near Kane's station. We're losing aft shielding, Kane shouted. Hold it together, Holt said. 30 more seconds. The relay ship loomed ahead, a black sphere covered in ridges, glowing with sickly green pulses. Smaller Mechor swarmed around it, trying to block the human approach. Maya flew like her life depended on it, because it did. The ship corkscrewed between attackers, railguns blazing. A missile clipped their wing, spinning them sideways, but she caught the drift and brought them level. Juno, Holt barked. Overload the forward batteries. That'll burn them out for good. Do it. The forward cannons roared. The overloaded rounds punched through the relay's outer shell. The green pulses flickered, then died. All across the rift, the M-Core's perfect formation shattered. Ships swerved out of position, some colliding, others freezing in place. The swarm was suddenly chaotic, something it had never been before. The Alliance fleet didn't waste the chance. Energy beams tore into the disoriented enemy. Missiles struck home. For the first time, the Mechor were pushed back. On the bridge of the Horizon spear, the crew sat in silence for a heartbeat, listening to the fading roar of weapons fire. Kane grinned in disbelief. We just turned the whole battle. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Guess we fight in the void after all. Holt didn't smile. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display. This was just one wave. They'll adapt. He looked at his crew. So will we. Outside the viewport, the rift seemed to darken, as if the real storm was still coming. And in that darkness, the humans prepared to go deeper. The rift was darker now. The battle behind them had ended in an uneasy victory, but no one on the Horizon spear felt safe. Captain Adrian Holt stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the shifting shadows on the tactical display. The M-Swarm had withdrawn, but not in retreat. They were moving deeper into the rift, toward something unseen. Commander Maya Reyes spoke quietly from her console. Alliance Command says to hold position and regroup. Holt didn't answer at first. His eyes stayed fixed on the faint red blips pulling away into the dark. They're not running. They're leading us away from something. Or leading us to it. Over the comes Commander Savark of the Rith broke in. Human vessel, your role in this engagement is concluded. Return to fleet formation immediately. Holt switched the channel off without replying. Maya, prepare to follow them. She hesitated. If we go in alone, that's exactly why we'll see something no one else has. The horizons. Spears slipped away from the fleet and into the rift's interior. The deeper they went, the stranger the space became. The stars outside the viewport were not steady points of light anymore. Some drifted, others blinked in and out, as if the rift was bending reality itself. The sensors gave conflicting readings. A planet-sized mass one moment, empty void the next. Lieutenant Juno Park came to the bridge, wiping her hands on a rag. Engineering's holding together, but the distortion fields out here are messing with the power grid. If it gets worse, We might lose shields. Keep us together as long as you can, Holt said. Hours passed in silence. The crew spoke only when necessary. Every sound seemed louder. The hum of the engines, the faint click of controls, the soft rustle of uniforms. Ensign Elias Kane stared at his display. Sir, I think I've got something. A faint heat signature pulsed in the dark ahead. It was not random like the rift's distortions. It was regular, deliberate, like a heartbeat. They pushed closer, and then they saw it. The M-Core stronghold hung in the dark like a living wound. It was vast, a black sphere miles wide, its surface ridged like the shell of some titanic creature. Hundreds of M-Core ships clung to its outer hull, moving in constant, purposeful streams. Pulses of green light ran along its surface, disappearing into deep cracks that led inside. The crew stared in silence. Juno whispered, "That's not a station. That's alive." Holt's voice was low. Maybe both. As they observed, Maya's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, I think I've found something. Those pulses, they're not random. It's a communication pattern. If we hit the right node on the hull, we might interrupt the whole network." Kane frowned. "But sir, there are life readings inside. Not McCore." Holt's eyes narrowed. "What kind of readings?" Kane's voice was tight. "Multiple species. Alliance species. They're prisoners." The bridge went quiet. The McCore were not known for keeping prisoners. They consumed everything. Ships, cities, people. If these beings were still alive, it meant one thing. The swarm wanted them for a reason. Maybe experiments, Juno said grimly. Or maybe something worse, Maya added. Holt's jaw tightened. They had two choices: attack the stronghold now and cripple the swarm's command, or try to rescue the captives. "Sir," Maya said softly, "we don't have the firepower to do both." The decision felt heavy in Holt's chest. Destroying the stronghold could save countless worlds, but leaving prisoners behind went against everything humans stood for. He thought of Earth's history. Humanity had faced impossible wars before, and every time, it wasn't just strength that defined them, it was the refusal to leave their own behind. "We go for the prisoners," Holt said finally. No one argued. They drifted closer under minimal power, letting the rift's strange currents mask their approach. The McCore ships kept to their patrols, their movements cold and methodical. Juno guided them toward a deep crevice in the stronghold's hull, just wide enough for the Horizon spear to slip inside. The walls were lined with black, pulsing ridges that seemed to move ever so slightly, like muscle. "Creepiest thing I've ever flown through," Maya muttered. "Focus," Holt replied. Inside. The passage opened into a massive chamber. Dozens of translucent pods lined the walls, each glowing faintly. Shapes moved inside, alien figures curled in suspended animation. Kane's scanner beeped. Fellini, Ketheri, even Rith, and some I don't recognize. All alive. Voice shook. "We can't carry them all." Holt's mind worked fast. "Kane, get?" The Horizon's spear burst out of the MCOR stronghold like a bullet from a gun. Behind it, the black sphere pulsed with green light, and the swarm reacted instantly. On the bridge, alarms screamed. "They're on us," Commander Maya Reyes said, eyes scanning the tactical display. 3 squadrons, incoming, closing fast. Captain Adrian Holt stayed calm, but his voice cut through the noise. "Plot us a way out." "Sir." Maya's hands hesitated over the controls. "The only open vector is deeper into the rift." Holt's eyes met hers. "Then that's where we go." The ship dived into the black. The rift swallowed them. Everywhere they looked, the darkness seemed thicker than space should be, bending the light from distant stars. Strange currents pulled at the Horizon spear, tugging it off course. The McCore ships followed effortlessly, gliding like predators in their native sea. In the hangar, Juno Park and Elias Kane worked frantically to secure the rescued prisoners. Some were conscious and frightened, their alien voices overlapping in panic. Others remained dazed from stasis. One tall Fellini female gripped Juno's arm. Her glass-like skin shimmered faintly in the dim light. "Why risk this for us?" she asked, voice trembling. Juno glanced at her. "Because leaving you there wasn't an option." On the bridge, the Makor drew closer. Their green weapons flared, sending beams lancing past the human ship. One struck the shields, shaking the deck. "Shields at 60%. Maya called. "They're hurting us," Holt realized. The swarm wasn't trying to destroy them outright. They were pushing them towards something. Moments later, it appeared. Ahead, the rift's shadows parted to reveal a massive energy vortex. It spun silently, its center blacker than the surrounding. Dark, electric arcs rippled across its surface like veins of lightning. Maya's voice was low. "What is that?" Kane's sensors buzzed with static. "Nothing in the Alliance database matches it." Juno's voice came over. "Comes from engineering. Captain, whatever that is, it's pulling us in." The Makor tightened their formation, cutting off escape routes. Holt's mind raced. They were being driven into the vortex, and if the MCOR wanted them there, it meant it was bad. "Options?" Holt asked. "Not many," Maya said. "We can either try to outrun the pull and fight them all at once, or ride the vortex and hope we come out somewhere." "Somewhere," Holt echoed. "Anywhere but here." Holt made the call. "Full power to engines. We're going through." The Horizon's spear roared forward, heading straight into the vortex. The Makor followed, but their formation faltered. The twisting energy tore at their organic holes, forcing some to fall back. The human crew braced as the ship plunged into the swirling dark. Gravity shifted. Lights flickered. The view outside warped. Stars bent into streaks, then vanished altogether. For a moment, there was nothing but crushing black. Then, light. They emerged into a region of space unlike anything the crew had seen. The stars here were red and dim, and enormous fragments of shattered planets drifted like islands. Between them, strange glowing currents of gas flowed, pulsing with soft blue light. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered. Kane's sensors finally cleared. "Gnome Corps ships detected. I think we lost them." Holt didn't relax, for now. They navigated between the floating planet shards, the ship's hull glowing faintly from residual energy. In the mess hall, the rescued prisoners were slowly recovering. A Kethari male, tall, with long bone-like spines along his arms, approached Juno. "Your kind fights, in a way none of us do." "Why?" Juno paused. "Because we've had to. Back home, nothing ever came easy. We learned that if you can't fight the way the enemy expects, you make your own way." The alien studied her for a moment, then gave a slow nod. On the bridge, Maya's console beeped. "Captain, we've got something on long-range scan. Faint signal. Could be an Alliance distress beacon. Could also be bait," Holt said. "But if it's real," he nodded. "We check it out. Set a course." The signal led them to a broken asteroid with a thin atmosphere, lit by the glow of a nearby red giant. Nestled in a crater was a small, battered ship, Alliance markings barely visible under scorch marks. They landed nearby. Holt, Maya, and 2 security crew disembarked in suits. The thin air tasted metallic through the filters. The ship's hatch opened with a groan. Inside, they found 3 survivors, 2 humans, and 1 alien. Thin, weak, but alive. The older, human, a pilot named Renee Vale, looked up at Holt. "Thought we were the last ones out here," she rasped. "Not yet," Holt said. "Come on, let's get you home." As they returned to the Horizon's spear, Maya glanced back at the wrecked vessel. "You think there are more survivors like them?" Holt looked at the rift's dark sky. "If there are, we'll find them. Far behind, beyond the shattered worlds, The Malkor stronghold pulsed faintly in the unseen dark. The swarm had lost this round, but Holt knew they weren't done, and if the MCOR thought they could break humanity in the void, they were about to learn they couldn't even bend them. The Horizon Spear drifted just outside the shattered world field. Engines at low power. They had been hiding for 3 days, waiting for signs of M-Core movement. On the bridge, the quiet was heavy. "They're adapting," Maya said at last, breaking the silence. "Sensor sweeps show they're deploying smaller, faster craft into the rift currents. They've never done that before." "They learned from us," Holt replied, his tone flat. "They saw we could fight in the void. Now they're changing their game." The comms unit beeped. Kane patched it through. The hologram of Admiral Tehran Lethra, a towering Solarian with crystalline horns, appeared above the table. His voice was sharp. "Captain Holt, your unauthorized operation has complicated matters. The Alliance Council is unsettled." Holt stood straight. "We saved 37 lives from a Makor prison. How is that a complication?" Lethra's horns flickered faintly, a sign of irritation among his kind. "Your raid has provoked them. They've begun attacking our forward stations. Some council members believe humanity's recklessness will draw the swarm to our home systems." "Some council members are cowards," Maya muttered under her breath. Lethra ignored her. "The council is considering withdrawing from the rift entirely." The words landed like a blow. Holt's voice hardened. "If we abandon the rift, we leave everyone still trapped there to die." "That is not our concern," Lethra said coldly. "Our duty is to protect what remains." The hologram cut out. In the silence that followed, Juno's voice came from engineering over the comm. "So they're giving up? Just like that?" "They're afraid," Holt said. "And fear makes people stupid." Maya clenched her fists. "We can't hold the rift alone, Captain." "No," Holt agreed. "But we can hit them where it hurts, and show the Alliance that running is the wrong call." They gathered in the war room, the flickering holomap showing the rift and the Makor territory. Kane highlighted a point deep inside enemy space. "This," he said, "is the core node. The MCOR use it to coordinate swarm movements across the rift. Take it out, and they lose their perfect coordination, at least for a while." Maya frowned. "That's suicide." "The core node is guarded by an entire hive fleet." Holt nodded slowly. "Which is why we don't attack it head-on. We make them think the Alliance fleet is coming for it, while we slip in with a small strike." "Team." Juno raised an eyebrow. "And where are we getting an Alliance fleet when they're all running home?" Holt's expression darkened. "We won't need a real one, just the illusion of one." The plan was simple in words, impossible in execution, using the Horizon Spear's stealth drives. They would plant a network of pulse beacons through the rift. These would mimic the sensor signatures of dozens of heavy warships, tricking the M-Core into thinking a massive assault was inbound. While the swarm moved to counter Holt's team would dive through the chaos, board the core node, and destroy it from within. Failure meant death. Success meant giving the Alliance a fighting chance, and maybe convincing them to return. The next day, they began. Flying low through the rift's currents, the Horizon Spear darted between drifting asteroids and debris clouds. Juno and Elias worked in the cargo bay, programming each beacon to broadcast the false signatures. At the first drop point, Holt gave the order, "Beacon 1, deploy." The device launched from the bay and drifted into the dark, activating with a soft hum. Seconds later, its signal flared across long-range scans, a perfect match for an Alliance dreadnought. 3 more drops went smoothly, but at the 5th, things changed. Maya's sensors flared red. "My core patrol inbound fast." "They weren't supposed to be here," Kane said. Holt's voice was steady. "Evasive maneuvers. Drop the beacon and move." The Horizon Spear twisted through the rift currents, the M-Core ships in pursuit. Their green beams lashed out, grazing the shields. The ship groaned under the pressure. Shields, at 40%. Maya called. Holt's eyes stayed locked on the tactical screen. Hold them just long enough to finish the drop. The beacon launched, but one of the pursuing ships accelerated unnaturally fast, almost as if it had anticipated the move. They're learning too quickly, Maya said. They always do, Holt replied grimly. They broke away, vanishing into the shadows. By the time the MCR lost their trail, the pulse network was nearly complete, but the crew could feel the weight of what was coming. In the mess hall, Juno sat with Maya. The hum of the engines was the only sound between them for a while. You think we can really pull this off? Juno asked. Maya took a slow breath. I think if we don't, no one will even try again. The Horizon spear slipped past the distracted MCR patrols. Sensors showing no movement outside, only the distant green glow of the core node ahead. Every heartbeat on the bridge seemed louder, every breath heavier. Captain Adrian. Holt leaned forward over the tactical console. This is it. Keep silent. No mistakes. Commander Maya Reyes nodded, her fingers poised over the controls. Ready when you are, sir. Aboard the spear, the strike team prepared to board the core node. They were small, only 8 members, all trained for infiltration. Holt, Maya, Uno, Kane, and 4 security specialists moved into the drop pods. The rest of the crew would remain aboard, piloting the spear through the currents of the rift. The pods detached, silent in the void, sliding toward the massive core node. Its surface rippled like dark water, green veins pulsing along its ridged hull. Lieutenant Juno Park swallowed hard. It's alive, she whispered. Holt's jaw tightened, and very angry. Let's keep it quiet enough that it doesn't notice us. The pods docked with the hull. Magnetic clamps latched onto the surface. The doors hissed open, and the team stepped onto alien ground, smooth but organic, moving subtly beneath their boots. The faint pulse of the core node echoed in their chests. This place is breathing, Kane muttered, scanning the walls. Whatever's inside, it's listening. Then we move fast, Holt said. They navigated a labyrinth of corridors, each turn twisting like the inside of a living creature. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, giving everything a sickly green glow. Occasionally, the corridors widened into vast chambers filled with Mekor machinery, spines, cables, and energy conduits running like veins. In one chamber, they paused. Ahead, a Mekor sentinel glided smoothly along a raised walkway. Its sensors were active, scanning the corridors. Juno, Holt whispered, any ideas? Juno tapped her console. Maybe. Shadows. Before Holt could ask, she stepped forward, motioning for Kane and the others. The team used themselves as moving shadows, sticking close to the pulsating walls where the light bent. The sentinel passed within meters, unaware of their presence. Holt allowed himself a small, grim smile. Humans improvise. They continued deeper. Each step brought them closer to the core node's heart. The corridors became tighter, the air thicker, though it was artificial. Alien sounds echoed clicks, low hums, and the faint whine of Mekor machinery. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. The core node's nucleus floated in the center, suspended by energy strands. Pulses of light traveled along every ridge, coordinating the entire swarm in the rift. This is it, Maya said softly. One shot, and the whole system collapses. Holt's eyes scanned the area. The energy conduits were exposed but guarded by Mekor drones, small, fast-moving creatures built for lethal defense. Kane set up a device to emit a short-range EMP pulse. This should disable the drones long enough for Juno to plant the disruptor on the nucleus. Time is everything, Holt said. Everyone ready? They nodded. Kane triggered the pulse. The drones convulsed and fell, leaving a path to the nucleus. Juno moved forward, her hand steady as she attached the disruptor. But then the ground vibrated. The core node reacted to their presence, sending a surge of energy outward. Corridors twisted, walls bending unpredictably. Drones recovered faster than expected. "Run," Holt shouted. Chaos erupted. The team sprinted through the twisting corridors as the core node's defenses tried to close in. Pulse waves threatened to crush the pods outside, alarms screaming, aboard the Horizon's spear. Juno reached the last junction, heart pounding. "The disruptor is armed. 10 seconds. Good," Holt yelled. "Now get out." They ran, sliding past corridors that shifted like living muscle. Drones lashed out, but humans were unpredictable, weaving, dodging, using walls and ceilings in ways no Mekor would anticipate. Their improvisation and instinct let them survive where precision alone would fail. Finally, they reached the pods. Holt activated the latch. Doors closed behind them just as the core node's nucleus pulsed violently. The spear's engines roared, pulling them away from the twisting corridors. Behind them, a massive explosion shook the core node. Light flared, waves rippling through the rift. The Mekor swarm outside faltered, disoriented. The pulse beacons had done their work, and now the core node was collapsing. Aboard the spear, the crew let out a collective breath. Shields were damaged, engines strained, but the ship was intact. Holt looked at his team, faces illuminated by the dim control lights. "You all did well," he said, voice low. "Not because we're stronger, faster, or smarter, but because we think differently. We improvise. We refuse to follow the rules that others accept." Maya nodded. "We turned the swarm against itself." Juno's hands were trembling slightly. "We actually did it. We survived." Holt smiled faintly. "Not just survived. We've given the Alliance a chance to fight back." The core node's destruction echoed across the rift. Mekor ships scrambled, trying to maintain cohesion, but it was too late. The pulse network, the strike, and the humans' daring improvisation had broken the swarm's control. Even through the comms, distant Alliance ships reported confusion and disorder among the Mekor. Holt allowed himself a moment to savor it. The mission had been impossible, and yet humanity had succeeded. As the Horizon's spear drifted in the rift, crew and rescued prisoners alike stared out at the void. The green glow of the fallen core node dimmed behind them, leaving a sense of awe and relief. Holt's voice broke the silence finally. "We're not done yet, but today, humanity showed the galaxy what it means to fight in the void." The rift was quiet now, but it was the kind of quiet that carried a warning. The Horizon spear drifted among the shattered asteroid fragments, its hull scarred but still glowing faintly from the energy pulse that had destroyed the core node. Captain Adrian Holt stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display. Red blips moved erratically across the sensors. The Mekor swarm, lost without their core node, flailing in confusion. "They're falling apart," Lieutenant Kane said. "No coordination, no plan. They're just moving." Holt nodded slowly. "Exactly, and we'll use that. Maya, plot a course that funnels them into the narrow current near the shattered ring." "Commander Maya," Reyes's fingers flew over the controls. "It's risky. If they figure it out." "They won't," Holt interrupted. "They're panicked. That's why humans are the ones pulling this off." Across the rift, Alliance ships had begun to reassemble. Seeing the Horizon spear's daring strike had inspired them. Smaller squadrons joined the signal beacons, still broadcasting false fleet signatures, creating the illusion of a massive human-led offensive. Admiral Torin Lethra appeared again via comms, this time less stern. "Captain Holt, your actions have given the Alliance hope." Holt leaned back against the console. "Hope is not enough. We finish this now, or the rift stays lost." The Mekor swarm began moving toward the shattered ring, a tight corridor of debris and floating rocks. Perfect for an ambush. Holt had calculated their path down to the second. "Speed at full," he ordered. We need to lure them in. The Horizon's spear surged ahead, weaving through the debris like a predator among shadows. The Makor followed blindly, driven by instinct and the false signals from the pulse beacons. Maya's voice cracked over the bridge. They're all in position. Wait for my mark. Below decks, Juno Park checked the warhead pods. They were small but powerful, designed to create controlled explosions among the tight spaces of the shattered ring. They're going to crash themselves right into our trap, Juno said to Kane, her voice a mixture of awe and fear. Kane nodded. Humans always find a way. We think sideways. They don't. The Horizon's spear darted through the corridor, a single glinting ship amid rocks and ghostly red light from the nearby star. Behind them, the first wave of M-Corps ships followed blindly, their green beams slicing past floating debris. Holt gripped the rail in front of him. Now Maya activated the trap. Energy fields flared from hidden pulse beacons, cutting off escape routes. Warheads detonated in sequence, forcing the M-Corps deeper into the narrow passages. The swarm collided with itself. Ships collided. Others were caught in energy pulses. Confusion reigned. For the first time, the Makor were no longer the hunters. They were trapped. On the bridge, the crew cheered softly. Holt allowed himself a small grin. Good. Keep it tight. We're not finished yet. Sensors flashed. More Makor were approaching from the far end of the corridor. Reinforcements unaware of the ambush. Adjust the pulse beacons, Kane said. Redirect the ones on the far side. Maya nodded, fingers flying. Done. They're going to think the trap is closing in on them from all sides. The Makor flew straight into the shattered ring, compressed between energy fields and exploding warheads. Even their speed couldn't save them. Meanwhile, the rescued prisoners watched from the observation decks, eyes wide with disbelief. One Thelini female whispered to a Kethari male, "These humans, they think differently. They'd survive when no one else could." The Kethari nodded slowly. Yes, they improvise. They fight in ways we never imagined. Holt glanced at the viewports. The swarm was no longer a perfect machine. It was a panicked, chaotic tangle, exactly what he had planned. But even amid success, tension remained high. The Makor were unpredictable. Smaller groups attempted desperate breaks, flying toward the edges of the shattered ring to escape. Intercept them, Holt barked. No one leaves. The shattered ring glowed ominously, a battlefield of twisted metal, pulsing energy, and the last desperate movements of the M-Corps swarm. The Horizon spear held position at the heart of the trap, engines humming steadily. Outside, the remaining Makor ships flailed, trapped between pulse beacons, exploding debris, and the cunning of the humans who had dared to challenge them. Captain Adrian Holt gripped the railing on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. This is it. Every ship, every pod, every beacon, synchronized. We finish this now. Commander Maya Reyes nodded. Sensors show the last organized MCOR group is weak. If we act smart, we can collapse their command entirely. Smart. Yes, Holt muttered. But humans have a habit of doing more than that. The last Makor ships attempted a breakout through a narrow current. Holt had anticipated it. Juno, Kane, initiate the misdirection. Juno's fingers flew over the console. Pulse decoys activated. They'll see phantom ships and assume the corridor is blocked. They'll turn back right into the main trap. Kane added, timing is perfect. If they hesitate, they'll bunch up, vulnerable to coordinated strikes. Holt's voice carried a calm fury. Let's remind them why humans survive where others fail. The trapped Makor collided with invisible energy walls, flares and beams reflecting off the shattered asteroids. Some ships slammed into each other. Others tried desperate maneuvers, but the humans had thought of every escape route, every tactic. On the Horizon spear, the crew watched the chaos unfold. Even the rescued prisoners Thelini, Kethari, and Rith whispered in awe at the ingenuity. One Rith, pilot, small and armored, leaned toward the others. They are humans. They do not fight like we expected. They think differently. Juno grinned. Exactly. We don't just fight. We improvise. Holtzcomb crackled. All ships, focus fire on the central node of the swarm formation. Concentrate. Precision, not panic. This is the end of their coordination. From the pods and smaller alliance ships, fire surged. Beams and pulses converged on the cluster of MCRO vessels. Explosions illuminated the dark void in green and red flashes. The swarm screamed through the rift, but there was no escape. Even as the battle raged, Holt noticed something else. The Makor, though defeated, were adapting, faster than expected. They're learning again, Maya warned. Holt's jaw tightened. Then we give them something they've never seen. Using the rift's unpredictable currents, Holt piloted the Horizon Spear directly through the center of the swarm, weaving in patterns no Makor pilot could anticipate. They fired carefully calibrated bursts from the spear's weapons, knocking ships off balance without hitting the prisoners still on board, or risking the pulse beacon's timing. Kane watched the readouts. Captain, they can't predict this. Every move we make is unexpected. Good, Holt said, eyes hard. Keep it that way. Make them think the void itself fights against them. The Makor formation began to collapse entirely. Ships turned on one another, trying to escape, but every maneuver funneled them deeper into the trap. Juno activated the final micro-warheads in the shattered ring, detonating them in sequence. The explosions echoed across the rift like a heartbeat, shaking even the Horizon Spear, but perfectly timed to prevent friendly fire. Pull back, Holt commanded. Let the field close behind us. The Horizon Spear twisted and accelerated through the corridors, leaving the Makor trapped in the collapsing formation. Energy pulses shattered their remaining vessels. By the time the rift grew quiet again, only scattered fragments floated among the asteroids. Aboard the spear, silence fell. It was heavy, tense, but victorious. Holt exhaled slowly. Status report. Maya. Checked. Shields stable. Engines holding. All crew accounted for. Trapped vessels neutralized. Makor swarm effectively destroyed in this sector. Kane added, the freed prisoners are safe. They've never seen humans operate like this. Holt's eyes scanned the viewport at the scattered wrecks. We've done more than survive. We've turned the impossible into reality. And we've shown the Alliance what humans can do. The rescued beings gathered near the observation decks, some still trembling, others staring in awe at the remnants of the swarm. One Thelini female whispered to a Cathari male, they didn't just fight. They thought in ways we couldn't predict. They survived where all others would have fallen. The Cathari nodded slowly, voice trembling with respect. Yes, humans. Holt allowed himself a small, rare smile. The pride of his crew, of humanity, was palpable. They had faced the void, faced a predator no species could match, and prevailed. Not through raw power, not through numbers, but through courage, adaptability, and unity. As the Horizon Spear prepared to leave the shattered ring, a message from Alliance Command arrived. Admiral Lethra's hologram flickered to life again. This time, his crystalline horns shimmered in acknowledgement. Captain Holt, he said, voice softer, almost reverent. Your actions have not only saved the lives within the rift, but inspired the entire Alliance. Humanity you have shown. The galaxy, a new standard of courage and ingenuity. The Alliance owes you gratitude beyond words. Holt stood tall. We didn't do it for gratitude. We did it because leaving anyone behind is never an option. And because when something impossible stands in your way, you find a way through it. Outside, the rift seemed calmer, but its dark currents still twisted and flowed, a reminder that danger lingered in every corner of the galaxy. The crew knew this was only one battle, but the impact was clear. Humans had changed the rules. They had survived the void, where no one else dared, saved lives, and outsmarted an enemy that had once seemed unbeatable. Maya looked out at the dark expanse. Do you think they'll ever underestimate us again? Holt's eyes gleamed. No, and that's the point. As the Horizon's spear sailed toward open space, carrying rescued beings and the crew who had faced the impossible, Holt allowed himself a final thought. The galaxy had seen courage, intelligence, and determination in its purest form. Humans were unpredictable, unyielding, and resilient, and in the endless darkness of the void, one truth became clear: no species could fight in the void until humanity tried.